Being alive is the weirdest thing the human consciousness can go through, mostly because it is unique to each individual based off of their interests, physical and mental health, their social lives, and the talents they decide to build on. In this show, I will address a topic and place my opinion on it, with no intentions to offend anyone who is dedicated to the topic, unless it is morally wrong and worth calling them out on. Hopefully this is something worth listening to kill your time, and just a good way to learn something you probably didn't know. I'm Mako, and this is Shabero, Mako. I was asked by Nuttyice to throw my opinion about video games into YouTube. And in all honesty, even though I spend most of my day indoors just doing stuff on the computer, I never spent that indoor time playing games. But I have seen other people play it, and I can tell you one thing, horror games are not for me. Although I recall that I shared some kind of tolerance when I was in the 7th grade playing Five Nights at Freddy's 2 on the bus. Games in general, I think, are an art form. Basing this off of my previous video games can be a form of self-expression. Something you create from the ground up that feels like it's alive, contrary to a presentation you do on a PowerPoint about why you should have woken up for school late. Some of these messages that I got are rather interesting. Bear with me for this. Minecraft allowed us to have more control over the world our avatar was in, while managing to emphasize how minuscule we still are to it without making us uncomfortable. Like how you can feel great for building a village, and yet feel excited going up against a dragon or a 3-headed skeleton thing. Undertale makes you reflect on how every decision you make can be important in the future. Super Mario Odyssey encourages one to seek out every little thing in life, where things might be found in unexpected places. Sonic Forces, even though being poorly made, conveyed a message to make sure to take a break from things that might delude you from your actual life. And EA's Star Wars Battlefront taught me that abusing capitalism is good. Wait, what? Video games are just interesting to me. The developers can end up being really interesting, surprisingly talented people, besides being talented in making the games themselves. But let's face it, most people pay attention to the games and the developers themselves. I think the reason why certain games became popular was because, 1, they introduced a new concept, like how Five Nights at Freddy's introduced the lock your doors, check your lights, and yet conserve power play mechanic, and how Undertale kind of expanded on the battle grid RPG idea, but you can move around whenever you want and don't really need to plan too much ahead of time. Or 2, they take an old idea and turn it into something new, just like how Cuphead was based off of those classical cartoons in the early 1900s. But then some games become really morbid, especially towards the end. The example I'm going to give you will shock you if you haven't heard about it already. You ready? Kirby Planet Robobot! Why? Because someone literally dies in there, and I don't mean they're inhaled by the little puffball, like the boss before the final boss is the businessman that invaded the Kirby's planet and mechanized it. He had a daughter who he thought died and wished with the machine that he found to bring her back. Turns out she wasn't dead, so she obviously couldn't come back. So he used the machine to the point to when his daughter did come back from another dimension, he didn't recognize her as his daughter. Then when he tries to use the machine to kill Kirby, his daughter screws with the helmet to make it so she can sell it. But the machine kind of absorbs the guy's consciousness, and thus when you kill the machine, you kill him. You see? Something that complex in a game based off of a character as simple as Kirby? Utterly mind-blowing. Oh yeah, and Kirby is my favorite video game character at the moment due to the fact that the soundtrack from Robobot helped me cope with some negative feelings. I tell you, when the music from a video game sounds good, it can't help but burrow into your memory and make it its home. Some games that are inappropriate and as crazy as Honey Pop are also within this topic, so I might as well address them. The mechanic is interesting. Matching 3 or more game to help do good on dates with points to purchase gifts from the harem of women the main male protagonist gets to sleep with, along with a few bonuses. Admittedly, this is an adult game, and the only reason I'm aware of it existing is because when I was younger, I was a curious girl who thought watching Markiplier for a really long time would be worth my while. You either expect me to be disgusted by how inappropriate it is, or the opposite, where I like it simply because it has boobies and stuff in there. No, it's neither. Art style looks nice, has some really interesting secret characters you can have a shot at. Heck, you can try and hit on the fairy who guides you through your dirty little conquest. So that ends my little ramble there about that topic, so I won't disappoint any adult I know who watches this. But when it comes down to video games based off of manga or anime series, I kind of find them less interesting, probably because the dialogue is bad or poorly translated, and or because combining an already established idea made from the universe of someone else with something new that might not relate to the future events in the series was executed, and in a poor fashion at that. It's kinda how I don't find anime movies to be interesting. It's based off of that same idea. I watched 3 One Piece movies with full knowledge for one that Ace was dead, and it took place during the 2-year time skip. Great quality animation, but the story was just terrible. I got a train, but a really, really bad guy who's escaped from prison is back and is trying to rule the world again. Gotta come up with a clever way to beat him. Then he just beats him with brute force using his armament hockey and a little bit of extra fire flare based off of Ace's, flame fruit or whatever. Like, it's that simple! One Piece Heart of Gold and One Piece Film Gold weren't too interesting in my opinion either. They're just unrelated side quests. Like, if it isn't a usual break from their routine in the series without any flair, then what's the point? I got more amusement growing up as a half-Japanese twit from watching... You don't know this. I'm Fun Man trying to get his confidence back because the literal source of his confidence was gone and he got a girlfriend and temporarily died. And the only difference between the movie and the show was that the movie had enough time to establish genuine connections and even get really emotional, even when it's for babies! So if that same logic applies to games based off of animes or whatever, then I don't see why I should personally take interest in them. I apologize for going on a ramble about anime movies. I feel like I should probably talk about anime and manga next to be consistent. I will admit video games based off of edgy animation TV shows tend to be good. A good example is South Park's The Fractured But Whole. Really classy, Trey. Matt, where they kind of took a break from the many antics of the main characters in that show to focus into one giant antic, pretending to be superheroes and solving a major case. Although it can sometimes reuse elements from older games and reference things from the show, it still manages to keep its charm. They do this better than anime or manga-based video games because South Park is more comedy, and they have established a sort of charm in my opinion where they can pack an episode full of nonsensical and insensitive comedy and also just cram a good rational statement in there. If action-based animes had games developed and they tried to mimic this, it wouldn't work because they would put them out of character. Of course, if this was a parody of the series, then I guess that would be acceptable. I don't hate anime and manga games, I'm just not interested in them. My favorite kind of games are sandbox games. I remember playing Super Mario Galaxy 2 for the first time in a Target store and then getting it for my Wii soon after that. I adored it. I loved running around the uniquely designed worlds, jumping through the shooting star warps and fighting Bowser and his son. The initial interest with the game inspired me to ask for Super Mario Odyssey, which was also incredibly charming and memorable. It remasters the sandbox ideal and dials up the pretty to 10. The graphical details were enhanced to go along with the technology's power to display such graphics. The sound design was nice to listen to, yes, even the footsteps, and the worlds were just gorgeous. The way the power moons were hidden proved to be a stressful but rewarding challenge, and I'm still far, far away from getting all the moons I need for the 100% completion reward. It was really nice, actually, talking about video games. If I am to give my final bit of words about this topic, well, I'm gonna try and get Kirby Star Allies for the Switch. I haven't had a Kirby game in years, mostly because I didn't have a 3DS. I still don't. Thanks, Nuttyice, for introducing this idea to me. Because, you know what, it was actually great talking about it. I hope that more people comment down below to see what I should try and talk about. This was genuinely fun to write and stressful to voice, but still I kind of like expressing the ideas, and I hope that I can keep this up. Bye!